Did you know that there's a light bulb in Livermore, California? This light bulb has been burning continuously for almost 125 years. There's a single light bulb that's been burning for almost 125 years, and it's a real thing. It's a real thing. I got a picture of it. Let's look at it. You could actually go to a webcam. I think that's the shot from the webcam. You can right now, if you got nothing else to do this afternoon, I mean, NFL doesn't start officially for a couple more weeks, so you're like, what do I do on Sunday afternoon? Crank up the Centennial light bulb stream, and you can watch this light bulb burn. Man, this thing's been burning, and if you're like 125 years, is that a big deal? Yes, it is. Did you know that the average light bulb today burns about 2,000 hours? And there's a reason for that. They don't make them like that anymore. That's why. Literally. So check this out. There was this thing that happened once called the Great Light Bulb Conspiracy. I know it sounds like something that you hear about on Fox News, but it's a real thing. The Great Light Bulb Conspiracy, what had happened was these light bulbs were burning so good, okay, light bulbs around the country, burning so good that all the big light bulb, capital B, they got together and all the manufacturers said, God, we got to do something about these light bulbs. They're too good. We got to make them not so good. So collectively, they all put their hands in the middle of a circle and said, 1, 2, 3, make the light bulbs die. They all agreed that on average, light bulbs would last. This is a real thing. Look it up. It's on Wikipedia. It's got a page and everything. They said, we are going to let these light bulbs die on purpose. Could we make light bulbs better? Yes, we could. Are we going to? No. Why? Because people are going to stop buying light bulbs. Like, we're going to go out of business. Our light bulbs are too good. This led to a whole business practice. Have you ever heard of planned obsolescence? A business practice called planned obsolescence. It's a strategy that says basically this. We make things with an expiration date on them. Could we make our cell phones last longer? Could we make our computers and our cars and stuff? Sure, things progress in technology and whatever. But could we make things last longer? Yes. Are we going to? No, we're not going to, because it's a business model. It's why planned obsolescence is why you have so many items in your life that have batteries that you can't change. You just got to get a new one. It's why, if you're going to college, we're talking about college students, it's why they produce brand new editions of textbooks over and over and over. I'm going to tell you something. We have not discovered any more new early American history. It's the same as when your grandma was doing it. I mean, it's the same, but we need new textbooks. Why? Because textbook companies need to make their money, right? It's just how planned obsolescence is this plan. And so this is the thing I want to set us up with as we get in this morning. The world around you is literally designed to break down. It's planned that way. Engineers and scientists and businesses, they do that. And I'm not sitting here as an agent of doom to tell you that. You know this already. It's true in the stuff we make, but it's also true in nature. Are you familiar with the natural law of entropy? Entropy is this law that says that everything is decaying to a state of decline and disorder. It's why metal rusts. It's why our bodies die. It's why, if I were to get a coin and spin it on this table, would it spin forever? No, you know that because you tried it. And the reason is there are forces of gravity and friction and other things playing against that coin. It's just a law of nature. The world around us is designed to break down. It's going to happen. It's everywhere. And I'm not here as an agent of doom, but I'm here to remind you it's just a fact of life. Now, that's the thing we start with, but it's going to kick off a whole big idea we're going to go through for about a month. So that, yes, the world around us is designed to break down, but B, we have a God who has a plan for that. We've got a God who is capable of dealing with the brokenness of our world and the systems of our life that tend to decay and decline. And so what I want you to do is grab your Bible and turn to Matthew chapter 7. That's where we're going to be today. I'm kicking off a brand new teaching series today called Built on Jesus. And so Built on Jesus is going to be like this theme that we're carrying through. And I'm going to be honest, this could be a lesson we could teach in the preschool Sunday school class. We could teach it to the elementary kids. We could teach it to the high school kids. We could teach it to the college kids. We could take it to the oldest people we have in this community and say, built on Jesus. It's so simple. It's so plain. But if we're not building on Jesus, our life is going to crumble. And we're going to take a big look at what is one of maybe Jesus' most well-known parables in Matthew chapter 7, starting in verse 24. So if you've got it, go ahead and open it up. If you're not, turn there. We've got Bibles that we give away every single week in the lobby. that you can take. I'm not ready for it yet. It's going to be a minute. But in the lobby, if you need a Bible, you can go and grab a Bible to use it during the service. You can take it home with you for the rest of your life. You can do whatever you want to. But let me give you some updates, some background on where we are. First of all, the book of Matthew. The book of Matthew is a biography of the life of Jesus. We've got 4 of them in our Bibles, and Matthew is the longest one. So if you don't know who Jesus is, or if you'd like to learn more, Matthew's a great book to read. It's in the New Testament of our Bible, which is teaching us about the early church and Jesus' teaching. And by the time we get to chapter 7, I want you to picture this, okay? Jesus, whatever you imagine him to look like, is standing in front of this massive crowd. A lot of times when we walk up on Jesus teaching, he's with his closest followers, just a few people. But he's with thousands and thousands of people in what we call the Sermon on the Mount. It's one of his biggest, most epic teaching, and maybe the most inclusive of all of his principles for life. And so if you're at Matthew chapter 7, if you flip back to Matthew chapter 5 and chapter 6, if you look, a lot of red print in my Bible, and in this translation, the red print means Jesus is talking. It's a lot of things that's going on, and when we get to chapter 7, he is now putting the capstone on this epic teaching. So this, if you've heard it before, I want you to know, this is actually Jesus' conclusion to the Sermon on the Mount. All right, so let's learn about what Jesus is talking about today. Matthew chapter 7, starting in verse 24. We're going to read all the way to verse 29. He says, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on a rock. The rains came down and the streams rose and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rains came down, and the streams rose up, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." And when Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, because he taught as one who had authority, and not as their teachers of the law. It's the parable of the wise and foolish builder. And it's like the conclusion to 3 whole chapters of Jesus' teaching. So if you're just like, they were amazed at his teaching, wise people build their house on rocks, that's not that amazing. No, they're talking about, they were amazed at all this teaching he had just done. The story is going to be our roadmap for the next month, and we're going to touch back on it. Today we're going to do like a big treatment of just this teaching, and then we're going to look at some other places in Scripture where the same principle is applied over and over, and what does it mean for us to live this out in our life, build our lives on Jesus. But on the surface, Jesus is telling this story about these 2 construction workers. You got a wise builder. Why is he wise? Because he's building his house on a good foundation. Obviously, that's something that someone would do. And we've got a foolish builder. Why is he foolish? Because he's building his house on sand, and it's not going to work out. And so there's a lot going on there. But anything, to make a good story happen, you got to have some conflict. You got to have some kind of struggle. And so he says this thing that's going to be pivotal for us to get started today. He says, the conflict is, there's a storm coming. A storm's a-coming. There's a storm coming. Not just some people are building houses, but a storm's a-coming. And it's brewing in the distance. And the question is, the conflicts, the thing that we're leaning into and the tension is, will the houses survive? Will the houses survive? Floods can be devastating. A group of us got to go up to western North Carolina in March to serve in Swannanoa, North Carolina, where some of the worst flooding from Hurricane Helene happened. It was devastating. Those of you guys that were there, it was terrible. I mean, you're in neighborhoods. We worked in this one particular neighborhood. There were areas up there, whole little townships just got literally washed off the map. We went to a place, it was a neighborhood, and the water was over the houses there, up to the rooftops, and they said that it was something like in 15 minutes. The water went from nothing on the ground, like you're fine, to up to the roofs. 15 minutes. Imagine you have 15 minutes to plan the rest of your life, let alone survive and gather all of your things and get out of there. People lost their lives. People's cars are floating away. They can't find their loved ones. Floods can be devastating. Jesus is familiar with this kind of thing because in their region, in the Middle East where he lived, there are these geological things called wadis, W-A-D-I. A wadi is like a ravine where naturally the water just kind of, there's these low points in your yard and in the neighborhood, and eventually the water flows down. But over centuries and centuries of water flowing in these really dry, arid otherwise places, when it's really dry and it's really arid and there's nowhere for the water to go, it just flows until it gets into a bigger body of water. And so what happens is in these wadis, in these ravines, in a matter of minutes, you can have these torrential floods, and then they're just gone. It's an incredible thing to think. And the people in the area that Jesus was talking to, they knew about the wadis. They understood what it meant to experience kind of a flash flooding. And did you build your house in the wadi? Nah, that'd be dumb. Like, why would you do that? You know it's going to rain. You know it's going to happen. But Jesus wants us to know something. He says this, and this is key. He says, listen, storms are coming. Storms are coming. This story is a metaphor about your life, okay? The house is your life. And the storm is whatever's going to come and wreck shop on your life. And it's going to come. Jesus talks about it in John chapter 16, verse 33. He's doing this little other teaching. In John chapter 16, verse 33, he says, I have told you these things so that you may have peace. I want you to have peace because in this world, you will have, what does it say? Trouble. Translation, storm. Things that will wreck your life. He says, but take heart, for I have overcome the world. We live in a world that was designed to break down all around us. But God has a plan for that. Take heart, for I have overcome. But listen, you're going to have troubles. And so let's talk about those storms for just a minute. This is a good exercise for you. Ask yourself, what are the storms in my life? What is it? I'll give you some ideas, some things that you might be wrestling with. For you, the storms of your life might be this constant pressure. It's pressure. Man, you are balancing more than anybody else could possibly know. Between work and family and all the things that you got going on, it's just pressure and pressure. We have the most anxiety as a culture than any other people that have lived before us because we have this feeling, at least, of pressure and sometimes real live pressure, things pushing on us. And you've always got to be on and you've always got to be going, but you always feel like you're not enough. It's pressure. And maybe for you, that's the storm you're wrestling with, whether it's mental or physical pressure and you're just dealing with it. Maybe for you, it's relational storms. It's people. And so it could be something as simple as just like a rejected relationship. Not that that's simple, but someone, you tried to reach out to a friend or a neighbor or someone that you were romantically interested in and like, dang, right? And you're just like, that hurts. That stinks. Relational stuff, or might be at home, like with your kids or with your spouse, and maybe your marriage is really on the rocks right now. It's rough. Or you're in the middle of like a divorce, or you've already had a divorce. And I apologize if that's like sensitive area for you, but I want you to know Jesus knew this was coming. Storms are coming. And it hurts. So maybe for you, the storms are relational. Or maybe for you, this is a big one. Maybe they're financial. Yeah? Have you paid attention to the economy? Anybody tried to buy anything lately? Like if things were tight for you like 2 or 3 years ago, talk about drowning in a flood, right? What do I even do? I mean, I'm not going to get paid more. They're not going to charge less. What are my options? And so that's the storm. And sometimes, man, we do wild things when finances don't add up. And it begins to challenge everything, even to our morality and who we are. And so maybe for you it's something else. Maybe it's more internal. Like you're wrestling with something, some mental health things going on, or you're wrestling with an addiction, or just like I said, that feeling of not being enough, and you wake up every single morning and you're just like, stupid, right? What is it? And those are just like categorical storms. Like, what is your storm? I think you can identify them because if we're going to try to build a house that can withstand the storm, sometimes it's helpful to be able to point at the storm and know where it is. Is it going to be hail? Is it going to be rain? Like, is it snow? What storm is it? What are we dealing with here? And can help us supply the tools that we need. And so I think one thing that Jesus is acknowledging here, and he does it all throughout his teaching, is to say, listen, I want you to know something. I see you. The storms are real. Okay? It's not a figment of your imagination, and you're not weak because it's happening to you. In fact, it happens to everybody. And I want you to know that I know about the storms. And so he gives us this teaching. And so what I want to do is take kind of a slower walk through that parable. We're just going to kind of look at a few of the key moments. And I want to start with just really the first line, verse 24. Really the first half of verse 24. Because listen to what he says. So what do we do? What do we do in these storms? He says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice. Pause. I've got a ... on my slides here. Okay, pause. Listen again. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does what? Puts them into practice. Okay, hear and practice. Or another way to say that is listen and obey. I'm going to do a huge spiritual exercise with you right now, and if you want to do it, join in. Everybody say this. Say listen and obey. Okay, you just learned one of the most important lessons from all of time. Listen and obey. So Jesus has just been talking for who knows how long. We have like the Cliff's Note version, Leroy. We were talking about Cliff's Notes earlier. We got the Cliff's Notes version of the Sermon on the Mount. Look at all this red. Chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 7. You're not going to find more Jesus stuff in one place in the Bible. He's been talking for a really long time. I preach for about 30 to 35 minutes every single week. And you might be like, that's a lot. And he made like 1 point today. Jesus is making like 50 points, okay? He goes on and on. He literally takes them all the way back to the Old Testament and the law there. And he tells them all these things about life and principles and what it means to honor other people, what it means to honor your God, how do you interact and deal with frustrations in your life, on and on and on and on and on. He's been talking and talking and talking. And they get to the end, and people are starting to zip up their pocketbooks and close up their Bibles and get ready to go to lunch. Like they're ready. Church is over. It's been the longest sermon in their life. And he says, wait, before you leave, let me tell you something. Whoever hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like, look at the next slide, is like a wise man who built his house on a rock. Because what I know that you might not have thought about is that a storm's coming. A storm is coming. A storm is coming. And I just told you a whole lot of really good stuff. And it's going to get you ready for this storm. This is your umbrella. This is your little arm floaties, okay? This is your whatever you need to get through the storm. I've given you this. But if you walk out of here and you don't do what I said, there's a word for you. I'm about to use it later. It's going to be foolish. But if you want to weather the storm, listen and obey. Whoever hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his life on the rock, his house on the rock. Let's talk about these two construction workers now. First, the wise guy, the wise person. What does it mean to be wise? If you were to read all of Scripture, I've heard people say the summary of the whole Bible is like love. Yeah, that's really good, actually. That's really good. God teaches us a lot about love. I think another principle that God really, really wants us to get is wisdom. We have whole categories of Scripture called wisdom literature. The book of Ecclesiastes, the book of Proverbs, Job. These are wisdom literatures. These teach us things. God really wants us to be wise. And so let's just ask ourselves, what does it mean to be wise? I think I've thought a lot about this and I was trying to boil it down. I think wisdom is primarily about being able to make choices that make sense. I can make a choice and it's like, you can look back later and be like, yeah, that made sense. That was the best I could do right there. Making choices that make sense, like being able to predict the outcome of your actions before you even see the consequences. You can kind of predict what might happen. That's wisdom. You know people like that. It's like when you go to the beach with your kids and you're like, hey guys, let's put on some sunscreen. Let's put on sunscreen. And your kids are like, oh, Mom, I don't want to put on sunscreen. Sunscreen's dumb. Sunscreen's not cool. And if you're a good mom, you can say, okay then, right? And then 4 hours later, your kids come up to you like the main special at Red Lobster, and they're just like, it hurts so bad. If you're a good mom, you'd be like, I told you to put on sunscreen. Why? Because Mom's been to the beach in July before. She's wise. She can predict the outcome before it happens. She knows that, listen, there are some steps that you can take. Reapply. Don't put on sunscreen and go directly into the ocean for 4 hours. Come back out and let it soak in, whatever, right? Like this is wisdom. This is what wisdom looks like. It's being able to know what happens. And so I love this little definition that wisdom is the ability to make decisions even when you don't have all the information. Has anybody ever needed to make a decision and you didn't have all the information? If ever you're like, hey, I'm seeking wisdom right now, it's why? It's because you're trying to make a choice. And Jesus says, listen, if you want to be wise, you're going to build your life on a rock. The builder is out there. Builders don't, I've done a lot of building, okay? Builders don't build in the rain. They take that day off. Some of you are like, yeah, my boss makes me build in the rain. Yeah, well, he's a bad boss. God invented rain so you can take a day off. But in general, we build on beautiful days. That's when we build. And so the builder's out there, but why does he put a roof on the house? It's not raining. Well, he knows it's going to rain. He wants to protect everything in the house. The builder is planning for things because the wide builder knows there's going to be storms. Like, you follow? Right? This isn't rocket scientist. You get this. But it's really interesting that we talk about wisdom in this way, being able to predict the outcome and make choices without even having all the information. I've heard this said, and this is a little bit of a side note, but I think it's really good. I've heard it said that the greatest question you can ever ask is this wise? Because a lot of times, especially if someone who's trying to seek God, the question we ask is this right or is this wrong? Because we are Western Americans, Western thinking Americans, and what we want to know is, where's the line? Like, is this good or bad? I mean, because I could, and instead of asking, is this right or is this wrong, if we could instead ask, is this wise, it would immediately stop how we think and reprogram our brains. And so there's kind of three filters for is this wise? And this is how you can remember it. Past, present, future, okay? Past, present, future. If you can run this question, is it wise, through past, present, future, you will begin to get a better answer. Let me tell you what that looks like. First, past. In light of my past experiences, is this wise? Should I go hang out with that group of guys? Well, what happened last time you hung out with that group of guys? Okay. In light of your past experiences, is this wise? Well, we all went to jail. Okay, well, then don't go hang out with those guys, because that probably won't work out. In light of my past experiences, is this wise? Present. In light of my present circumstances, is this wise? I want to play one more round of video games. Well, right now you have homework due. Right now, there's some things you need to do. Is this wise? In light of my present experience, honestly, that's the hardest one to filter, because you're like, I don't know. Future. In light of my future hopes and dreams, is this wise? I hope to get up early and work out before I got to go to work tomorrow. Should I watch Monday Night Football all the way to the end? Is this wise? Not is it right or wrong, because is it right or wrong to stay up late and watch Monday Night Football? Maybe neither. But is it wise? And so, past, present, future, is this wise? And so I think if we can begin to filter our life through the question, is this wise? We're going to be tapping on exactly what Jesus wants us to do in terms of what it means to build our life. So the wise man builds his house on a rock, on a firm foundation. We use concrete where we live here now. A firm foundation. And we're going to look more at that foundation, and the rock, spoiler, is Jesus. Sorry if you didn't already catch that, but that's next week when we talk a lot about him next week. But right now we're just talking about the building process and the storm. And so another question, in addition to what are the storms of your life, is this question. So what are you building on right now? What are you building on right now? Is it something that will last? Or is it something that will crumble? Jesus says if you're wise, you're going to build your house on something that's going to last, on the rock. The rains came down, this is verse 25. The streams rose up, and the winds beat against that house. The storms are coming. Yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. That's the first builder, the wise builder. Okay, let's take a look at the second guy, the foolish builder. Jesus continues, verse 26. He says, but everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. And the rain came down, the streams rose up, the winds blew and beat against the house, and that house fell with a great crash. What are you building on? I have a theory, and I haven't tested this. There's no research behind this. It's just observation. But I think one of the things that many of us, many in our culture, build our lives on is entertainment. Entertainment. Essentially, what makes me happy right now? What makes me feel good right now? What makes me laugh? What makes me not have to think about anything else? Stuff that distracts you so that I can just kind of veg out for a minute. I mean, how much time do we spend just simply entertaining ourselves? And I know you might be thinking about Netflix and Disney Plus, but I'm also talking about like just buying extra shoes. If you only got 2 feet and there's only 7 days in a week, and how many shoes do you need? But it's like, man, I just need these shoes for sure, and these clothes and these toys and these vacations and all this stuff. And listen, God gives us every good and perfect gift, and I'm not slamming having nice things or being entertained. Those things are good, but that is no foundation for your life. It's not. Because the video game that you invest your life in, and I know I'm talking to adults, but many of you know that, like, yeah, this is a really big deal for many adults. The video games that you put your life into, I mean, guess what? You're spending real life money on it, and it actually, you can't cash that in at the bank. And it's good. It's okay. It's fine to hang out with your friends, but the entertainment or the little app, you're just crushing candy. I mean, you're crushing that candy. I just found out the other day people are still playing Candy Crush and like all these things. We're doing these games, and it's like, but we just kind of, it's the vision. You can't build your life on that. In fact, so many things that we build our life on, literally, we talked about planned obsolescence. Almost everything we build our life on entertainment-wise is obsolete in a matter of years. The technology, the fashion, the entertainment, it's fleeting. It will pass away. You can't build your life on that. Here's another thing we tend to build our life on. Sometimes we build our life, and this might be more common, we build our life completely on people, which actually sounds a lot better. I'm talking about, like, there's no one in this world that I love more than my wife and my children. I make sacrifices for them. I set my whole calendar up around them. But guess what? They're human. And first of all, it's not even fair to them for me to make them my foundation. Think about that. Like, selfishly, it's like, they make me so happy and so secure, and I feel so good about myself when I'm with my wife, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, the people I love. They love me back. But why are you putting that pressure on them to hold you up? That is not fair to them. That is being a bad friend. If you have any mistakes, I'm screwed. You can't do that. Don't do that to them. Don't do that to them. But secondly, it's not wise for you. Because they're human. They're going to have weak days and they're going to have failures, and they may completely let you down. There might be a day where they move away, or they change life, or they change. You can't build your life on that. Now, here's the thing. Man, I think having the right people in your life is a huge thing. God talks a lot about that. And so maybe they should be like on the front porch of that house that you're building, or hanging out in the living room or the kitchen or the wherever you like to hang out on the patio. Like they can be in your life. But don't make them your foundation, because that's sand. And it might be a little bit more secure than Candy Crush, hopefully. But that's foolish, and it's not fair to them, and it's not fair to you. Here's one more thing. These are the three big ones that I think we build our life on. What about your career? You know, you spend a third of your life at work. A third. This is according to Google. You spend another third of your life asleep. It's 2/3 of your life. I don't know if you've ever done fractions. That's a lot. So everything else in your life gets to fit into that last third, okay? A third of your life is in your career, and it's very important. But think about how we form our kids and the young people in our society, and it happened with you. I mean, the most important question that you ask a 10-year-old is, what do you want to do when you grow up? Talk about pressure. I don't know. I was thinking about being a Barbie doll. Is that an option? Astronaut. Are they still signing up for astronaut school? Can I do that? Like, we don't know, but people put this pressure on us to just know. And like, I've got kids who now are in the age where it's like, we get our kids signed up for college their freshman, sophomore year of high school now. Do you know that? If you're not raising kids right now, I want you to know that. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. This is real life, okay? They call it dual enrollment. It used to be dual enrollment when you went to two different colleges at the same time. No, now it's called dual enrollment when you're a high school student who also gets credits at college. And guess what? You know why? Because you get college credits. You'll have an associate's degree before you get out of high school. Now, that's really cool if that's going to serve you in life and you need that. But if you've ever been a 10th grader, that's a lot of pressure. And we pad our resumes and our transcripts. Why? Because people are going to stand next to you and say, what do you do? I mean, and the measure of that is, this is what's the underlying, and we don't mean it when we say it, but we kind of do. It's like, what purpose do you have? What contribution do you make to society? Make no mistake, I believe we were created to do work. In fact, I think it's our biggest call in our life to do work. Adam and Eve worked the garden, and we have good works prepared in advance for us to do from our salvations, Ephesians chapter 2. But even your career can't be your foundation, because there are layoffs, and there are changes in technology, and there are changes in interests and passions. And You need to make money sometimes. And so you can't make that the foundation of your life. And so I think this whole idea of building our life on sand, sometimes we want to build on really good things, but Jesus says, I want you to build on the best thing. Just like friends and relationships, it's really good to have a good career. It's really important. It does give you purpose. It does give your life a lot of meaning. But that can't be the foundation. Verse 27, the rain came down, the storms rose, and the winds blew against that house, and it fell with a great crash. So life is full of storms. Our life is actually a lot more like a wadi than we're willing to admit, because flash floods happen. And it's in our best interest to say, how do I, A, get out of the way of the most storms as possible? There's a lot to be said for that. And B, prepare myself for the storms that will inevitably come. Instead of just living in la-la land and saying, it's fine, everything's fine. No. Sometimes it's not fine. Sometimes really crazy bad things happen. But how can we prepare? Our God has a plan for that. Let's wrap this up. Okay, so here's the truth. There are storms coming. For some of us, the storms are here right now. You are in the thick of it. You are taking cover. You're down in the basement trying to survive right now. Can I encourage you to please be praying for someone who's in a storm right now? It's hard, and I'm sorry. I wish that we could just take it all away, but that's just, I don't know. That's life. That's what the great omniscient creator gave us, was this life. And when the storms hit, check this out, your foundation will be exposed. Your image is not exposed. Your intentions are not exposed. Actually, what's exposed during the storm is your foundation. Why? Because you're either going to have footing or you're not. That's what's going to show up when the storms hit. And so Jesus invites us to build differently. No matter what you've been building on right now, guess what? You don't have to pull a permit from the county. Right now, today, you can start building completely differently. You can say, whoa, okay, I need to start brand new foundation. Jesus invites us to stop building our life on shifting sand, but instead find it on something will last. And I want you to come back for this whole series because we're going to continue to talk about Jesus and how that practically works in our life. But if you just compare and contrast the ways of this world with the ways of God, and here's just a couple of them, you can see the difference. Our world says, listen, look out for number one. You take care of yourself, and that's all. But you know what God says? God says, no, look out for other people. Put other people first, always. That's what you do. That's always how you live this life. Or the world says, get rich and be successful, and that's all that matters. And Jesus says, no, seek first my kingdom and righteousness, and then you'll have everything you need. Or this is a huge one. When it comes to our intimacy and our sexuality, and I'll say it, and it's like, whoa, he just went there. But man, what is shaping our culture more than sex? And the world says, just do whatever, whenever. That's all. That's the rule. Whatever makes you feel good, just go for it. And that's not what God says at all. He says, no, this is actually something that impacts your soul different than any other thing that you can do. And so what I designed it for was a man and a woman who are dedicated to each other in marriage, and that's it. And that's a different foundation. It's a whole worldview shift. The world says, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. And Jesus says, man, don't you worry about that. I can give you abundant life now, and I can give you abundant life for the rest of eternity. You just build on me. So that gets us into this parable, and I want to close out today with our challenge, okay? We've been talking about the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus preaches this 3-chapter thing, and then when we get to the wise and foolish builder, that's kind of the conclusion of the whole teaching. And so it's kind of not fair for us to just cherry pick little verses out of Scripture and be like, that was fine, when, man, there's such a robust context for all of it. So here's the challenge this week. How we're going to build on the rock, here's the challenge. Every day this week, I want to challenge you to read a portion of the Sermon on the Mount. That's Matthew 5, 6, and 7. Any portion. I'm not saying that by the end of next week you have read all of it, 5 through 7. You can. Any portion. I'm serious. I was talking to Brian earlier. He's our band leader that plays drums. And he was like, I think you could just flip through it and be like, that's today's verse. And just read it. Okay, that's the first thing. Just read it. And then decide to obey at least one thing that Jesus says that day. Obey. I just anecdotally went through that a couple of times in my office this week. It's like, does that work? And boom. I mean, you could apply something from the Sermon on the Mount every single day. Because Jesus says, whoever hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like the wise builder. So first we got to hear the words. Now, we have taught through the whole Sermon on the Mount twice here at our church. So if you want to dig back in our podcast and find that, I think the last time we did it, it was called Salt and Light. You could go listen to those. I think there's like 7 or 9 different sermons on the Sermon on the Mount. That might be helpful. Google Sermon on the Mount sermons or YouTube, whatever, find it. But this is, if you don't already have a good spiritual habit of getting in the Bible every day, this would be a really good one. This QR code actually is going to take you to a reading plan that I would love to see a lot of people from our church jump in and be reading it. So it's a 7-day reading plan through the Sermon on the Mount. So we'll leave that up there for a minute, and then afterwards it's going to be in the announcement scrolls, the slides that go through. So maybe you're just like, well, okay, that's it. Guess what? You won't be doing it alone. So if 5 of you are doing it, or maybe more, maybe people online are jumping on doing that thing, we can be reading that thing. And there's like, typically in these reading plans, there's a way to just kind of type back a response. You don't have to do that. Don't feel the pressure of that. But if you want to be like, hey, this is how I'm going to obey today, this is the listen and obey challenge. Because we are fools. We are fools if we don't hear the words Jesus says and then put them into practice. Because the storms are coming. Let's pray.